Hey, Bob Tolar is with me right now. This is Music Talk from the North State. I'm Dr. Paul Young. Once again, Music Talk from the North State is our podcast that is about the hopefuls of the music industry who are in a region. Now, we talk about things from being the area of the North State, but as far as I'm concerned, anybody who's not just in Northern California but is in a region, I'm talking to you. I want to be able to talk to the businesses that are in our area and the industries and that kind of thing that we attach to, and to know the other side of everything that we want to get into, whether you want to be the hopeful of you actually want to run sound, you want to run that business. That's my friend over here, Bob. But also as a musician, we're fellow musicians and those kinds of things. If you're looking to start something in a business, you've come to the right place. So Bob, thank you for being here and being willing to do this with me today.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Yeah, we're actually over here at North State AV, Audio Visual, which was Tolar's company. You used to name it. Tell me again.
Started out Tolar Sounds when we were just a sound company.
But you were actually also starting as a music business person. As a player and those kinds of things. Tell me about that.
Yeah, started playing in a cover band in college and kind of rose up to have it be very successful cover band. We were making a living at it. And sound was very important to us. Local bands in Chico made a lot more money in the late 80s and early 90s than they do now.
I don't even know what that's like, making money.
It is crazy.
And this now.
Yeah. I mean, back then, you would get 80% of the door, and the bars just wanted to keep the drink money, and you'd go pound your own flyers and kind of be your own promoter, and the people would come out, and you could walk away with a couple $1,000 a night, and there's really no places that you're going to make that kind of money in Chico.
It's much harder now.
Or even the surrounding areas, for like a nightclub or bar gig. Now you're lucky if it pays $500. More like $250.
Well, we did well when we were in Los Angeles. Big difference over here. So you guys did something that was pretty good. What kind of places were you playing?
Back in the day, it was the Top Flight Ballroom, which is now Buck's Crazy Horse Saloon. We played at Tres Hombres, at the Bear, LaSalle's, of course, Scotty's Boat Landings.
Tell me about this. You've got all kinds of certificates of appreciation. Where are these coming from?
Most of them are local charities, organizations, fundraisers, things like that. They wanted to, couldn't afford to pay for the services, so we do it for free or at a discount.
How long have you been doing this, though?
30 years.
What brought you into this 30 years ago? I mean, yes, you were talking about there's a band, you were running your sound, but...
Well, back then the bands all had very dramatic PAs. They're back in the days of the funnels, they're still around. You were micing all the drums. People had gates and compressors. They were running more than one effects processor. A lot of them were running MIDI pedals and bouncing echoes off in time with the music. Change the whole environment of the drum reverbs and the vocal effects during the show from song to song. Very high expense, learned sound that the bands were doing. So that's what I was trying to bring our band up to, so that, the kind of the standards that we're at.
And you were doing this just for your band before you had to deal with other people.
Yeah, and so, what happened is we kind of got to the point where we had the nicest PA in town, and other bands started hitting me up. Hey, if you're not playing Friday, how much would you charge to come out and do sound for our band? And, so, the next thing I knew, I had half a dozen bands hit me up all the time, and that parlayed itself into a club gig 4 days a week. Right. And then, of course, I needed a second PA because it was conflicting with our ability to use the PA for the band. And I needed another engineer that could, go do shows.
So you might have two gigs going on at once where you got somebody else running sound over there while you're running your own band kind of thing.
Yeah, it starts out just kind of as a way to make extra money when you don't have a band gig. And next thing you know, you realize, wow, we have an actually legitimate business here.
Yeah. You were doing well with the band. Was the sound company doing any well?
Yeah, we really got to the point where we were kind of the only game in town. I mean, there was definitely some duke it out competitive battles that occurred to get to that point. If you don't have a day job, most of the people I was competing with had day jobs and they were kind of weekend warriors. So, they were doing it for extra money. I was trying to make a living at it. And the only way to really make a living in Chico doing sound jobs was to have all the sound jobs. Yeah. So that became my goal, is to lock the town down and have all the sound jobs. And I just did it by working harder and cheaper and being willing to bring more to the table. And, I did that for years and years. And what I found was that when I was doing some of the larger shows where there was lighting company there or a video company that had projectors and screens, I might happen to see what their check was. And I realized that their check was dramatically higher than mine.
So you started thinking the visual part of not just the audio, but also the audio visual.
And I would kind of inventory what they were bringing and do the math of what it cost for them to buy that equipment. I realized, wow, I'm getting a much lower return on investment doing sound than these guys are doing video and lighting. And so we decided to start going into that stuff specifically to tap into that revenue, but also because, I didn't really want to travel around that much. And in order to make more money in Chico, I had to diversify because there was only so many sound jobs to go around.
Were you trying to refer people out and you started to see what happened with like other companies getting that kind of work? Or how did you get into the fact that you saw what their bills were like on lighting?
Well, sometimes you just see the guy handing the checks out, or, the other guy leaves his check sitting on top of his lighting console and you happen to see it there. Or the promoter tells you. A lot of times the promoters didn't like the guys they were hiring for the other stuff, and I got a lot of pressure from the community to go into that business. Some of those people were people I was referring on every job to fulfill lights or to, handle another part of the job that we didn't do. And I would get complaints. He doesn't call me back.
You're talking about the other lighting guy or something like that.
Yeah. One of those companies like that, and I would find that they were just constantly pressuring me. We don't want to hire him. We'd rather have you just handle it. Would you just book it? Why don't you buy this stuff? We'll hire you every year. And, it was hard for me. And in some cases, I would approach those guys and say, hey, I'm getting pressure. So get it together because, if they keep complaining, I'm not going to have a choice. I'm warning you.
Yeah.
And they would deny it. Oh, no, I return all my phone calls. I'm always there. I don't know what they're talking about. I'm like, it's happening over and over again.
Regional businesses can be either on top of things or not.
Yeah.
There's got to be a learning curve, though, because you're coming from audio, and then all of a sudden you're getting into lights, and that's got to be a different kind of business.
Absolutely. And,
Tell me about it.
Usually when I did it, it's because I had somebody that knew how to do it that came to me and was also, I'll do it for you, Sometimes it was one of the employees of the other company, and they had a gripe, were disgruntled for some reason, and telling me they're shocked I didn't do it sooner, and they became the facilitator that knew how to do it, helped me figure it out. And what I realized is that it's not that hard. It's really not. Once you understand production, it's all the same Genie towers and cabling and parts. It's just a matter of learning the art of that particular discipline.
Okay, so I'm going to get into a couple questions, and we might go back to this one a little bit later too. But what does it take? Because my audience right now, they're the hopefuls that want to be in this business. Is the ones I think I'm talking to. That's what I think I'm trying to help you out with is to be able to know how do I get into the business of either doing this for sound, working for somebody for sound, working for lighting, and those kinds of things. Are there certain skill sets that you need in either one of those areas that really make some sense?
Yeah, I would say meticulousness is absolutely vital. This is about making things look nice.
What do they got to know before they even meet you, though?
There are entry-level jobs where you're pushing the gear around. You're going to have to learn how the particular company does things. Even if you have some knowledge, you're going to have to push their stuff around, load the trucks, learn what goes in every road case, which items go where, how they plug together. Because a lot of stuff's kind of custom put together. It's manufactured equipment, but we've decided what components are in racks together, that we've decided how they're wired, how our systems are working. And
so there's not a specific like audio company or a visual company or a video company or lighting company and things that they really need to focus on before they meet you.
I certainly think if somebody's worked for another audio-visual company in a major market for years, they're probably qualified to come work for me, and all they would have to do is adjust for how we do things. But if somebody's coming out of school, they're probably going to have zero knowledge. I don't know of any major that I've run into that came to us and really had any knowledge that really helped us in the audiovisual industry.
Even over at Chico State or Butte College in our local areas, they study recording arts and those kinds of things, but it's a different hybrid of what you're doing then.
Well, think about how it works in a studio. You're going to be taught how to mic a drum kit, proper miking technique. They're not going to have the same microphones we have necessarily. Live has some adjustments about how you're pointing the microphones, feedback elimination. The cabling system, how the stands look, how the cables look, how you mic the kit up so it looks a certain way, the idea that it needs to peel off, another kit has to come in for opening bands, all of that is not covered at all. Usually in the studio you're running the cables across the room. All the cables can be just running across the room. People are even walking on them. That's completely unacceptable. If anything, you're learning bad habits that have to be weeded out, once they get to us, because when we do it, it has to be completely neat. Every cord has to be wrapped up. All the coils have to be stacked, staggering, so you can pick things up, replace a cable that's bad, and not create a big spaghetti mess.
And you're talking about it from a production point of view. And I was even talking about, like, do they need to learn certain things about lighting companies or something like that, because there can be different things. But you're also dealing with a client on top of that. So you can take this in a couple different directions, what I just brought up to you. One of them is dealing with a client, but the other part of it is, like, is there a specific kind of a audio company or lighting company is the gear that you're using, kind of thing that they need to learn about.
Yeah, that's a tricky one too. That the digital consoles are all very different, which is why when we sell and install equipment, which we've done probably the lion's share in this region, we always put the same equipment in to some degree because we want all of the people that are farming up at the churches and the schools to be on the same platform. So for us, that's the Midas M32 console. It's probably the most common one that's put into performance venues and nightclubs, bars, smaller performance venues.
And that kind of stuff, is that available for somebody else when they're learning this kind of stuff? They should have been picking up the Midas 32 somewhere else?
Even when we do trainings, we've got some really in-depth trainings I've gotten some great reviews on, 400 PowerPoint slides, and sometimes it'll take 2 weeks of 5 days a week to take people through this kind of university that I put on to bring them up to par. And of course, I do that during the slow season of January, February, when we don't have as many shows. By the time I need all these new guys, because in the winter, when it's slower, the new guys aren't working at all. You're going to call all the guys that you really need that know what they're doing, because you have to keep those guys, keep their bills fed, paid and them fed and happy, so they stick with you and they're available during the busy months. Right. So those are the guys that we're working. And all the new guys aren't going to get any work until things are just rolling in April, May.
How many people are working for you?
This company has only 3 full-time employees, the ones that are here every day running the company. That's myself. I'm the production manager. So I'm the one that takes all the phone calls, books all the shows, kind of decides what's the package of gear that's going to go here, what's the package of gear that's going to go over there, and all the other rentals, so that there's no conflicts of equipment. There's no double booked equipment, and then staffs them, gets the right menu of people onto each show so that their talents are in the correct place. And then I also do the payroll and pay the bills and kind of manage the money and the banking and things like that. And then the second guy is Justin Thompson. He's our sales director. He books and designs all of the installation stuff.
Let's go back before we go to the people that are doing it. You're in 3 different kinds of businesses, basically. So you're running live sound kinds of things. You're running equipment rentals, from what I just picked up. And now you're saying you're into sales and installation. Tell me more about what makes these things distinct, or, besides the people.
The sound side we call event production, and that covers sound, lighting, video, pipe and drape, structures.
Pipe and drape?
Yeah, so if you picture, your typical set of a corporate event, a meeting, a conference, the pipe and drape, there's almost always a pipe and drape backdrop.
Okay.
That black drape, it's all temporary. Put base plates, poles, cross members, slide all the drape on, make them look nice and perfectly spaced, raise them up in the air, telescope up. You put the screen in front of that, or 2 screens in front of that. You layer it, the stage in front of that. It makes this whole set. So pipe and drape is key. When we do our higher end events, all of our sound booths have little short 3-foot pipe and drape we call tech drape that surrounds the booth. We also can use that stuff to create a skirt underneath a screen or some sort of device. Right. All of our projection screens have full surround black veneer pipe and drape kits. Well, those aren't pipe and drape; those are just veneer dress kits.
You're really running the way that this is going to look as an aesthetic kind of a thing. Besides the fact that you got to put some gear behind it, you want everybody to feel that there's a nice little environment going on, that kind of thing. So you basically are in 3 different businesses, I would say, as I understand it. Now you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're in the live and the event promotion kinds of things. Then you're in the business of equipment rentals, which we're going to run around here, and we're going to be able to see some of the things that you've got going on back here. I think that you've got all kinds of things that are going with audio and visual, obviously, but you'll be able to explain once we move around the different room about that. But you're also in sales and installation, and tell me about that a little bit more.
The event production is sound, lighting, and video. Pipe and drape and structures. It all fits together. Anything where we have to take our equipment to the client's venue, set it all up, make their entire event work, run the event, pack it all up, put it back in our truck, bring it back to our warehouse. They're paying for the rental of the equipment and the staffing to set it up. And
how many people do you go out with that?
Typically 4 to 6 of us can set up a pretty large scale event. Sometimes big concerts, there might only be 4 people on staff, but the venue, like a local casino, will be supplying a crew of loaders, half a dozen stage hands, and they'll show up when we roll in with the truck, and they'll push all our gear in, and we'll say, oh, you 3 guys go with this guy, you 3 guys go with them, and we'll just tell them what to do. Yeah. And in that case, we don't really have to do any lifting that day. we'll pull a lot of cabling, we'll be hooking things up. And that's kind of an added challenge because then your staff has to be able to manage other people as well, especially people that know nothing. That's the event production side, going and doing the events for people. The sales and installation side is where you're purchasing the equipment permanently from us. Yeah. So that involves going out to the venue, figuring out what their needs are, designing a system, pitching them on that the system's going to be right to meet the needs of the users.
And then you're going commercial, you're not going residential.
I don't do any residential. I did for a while, and I very much disliked it. Yeah, okay. and there's a reason for that, because commercial is, the construction is very similar. There's a lot of T-bar, drop ceilings where you can pop the tiles out and run wires above them.
So you talked about the sales and installation. Tell me about the equipment or rental business part of things.
So anything we own, we're willing to rent, with a few exceptions. We're not going to rent things out that are dangerous. Big structures where you're going to be hanging things, chain motors, motor control, know. I don't really want to rent out my big line array sound systems where the propensity for loss is huge if the person doesn't know what they're doing. Now, if it's another sound company that I respect and I know they're licensed and insured and I've seen what they can do, absolutely we'll rent them anything. But for the most part, the rental business...
who's your client?
Oh, there are people putting on their own wedding, anniversary party. They want to rent 2 speakers on stands with a wireless microphone, have a karaoke party. They want to rent a projector and screen for some pharmaceutical rep to give a pitch at a restaurant for their
they got
doctors.
Their own sound guy, but they just don't have the equipment.
Yeah, they're just going to go set it up themselves. So that real easy stuff. Throw it in your trunk type of things. A lot of churches rent things. They'll rent up lights and extra lighting and some extra wireless microphones. We run a lot of wireless microphones.
And they have enough people that they can deal with it to actually run the gear, so they don't need you for the gear.
Yeah,
and
a lot of
saving
venues.
Some money because they're not necessarily hiring you for the labor part of it. They just need the equipment.
Exactly. A lot of venues will rent in-ears out and mixer boards and things that they need. They have all their own gear normally, but the band's coming through requires X, Y, and Z. They don't have that. They call us. We do. Okay. So they'll come over and pick up. In that case, you're dealing with absolute pros. They have their own people to run the stuff. They know what we own completely. They rely on us as a support.
So I want to ask you, if someone wants to work for you and they want to get into these kinds of things, what's your advice about the way that they get into this? I think you've given me some of the ideas, but just to break it down to that basics.
Well, if we're specifically talking about working for North State AV, we do an internship that's available to each of the departments that have any sort of association to our industry. In that case, that's recording arts and as well as music industry at Chico State. And then we also have a department over there at Butte College as well that sends people over. And we kind of use that as the proving ground to find candidates that we hire out of. It gives us a semester, however many hours are required. I think with Chico State it's 76. At Butte College it's significantly more. But that gives us time for them to come do the events. And the way it works, basically they just sign up for events. We send them a big list of here's all the shows, a kind of brief description of what the show's about, and they sign up for whatever dates they can do. Yeah. And we keep track of how many hours was that. We send them tallies. Oh, you're up to this many, and try to keep them booking jobs so they get it done. We try to make sure everybody gets their hours so that everybody gets an A. Yeah. So we really try to give them that support. And they're learning by doing. They're there witnessing the whole event go together, and how much of that they retain and how many questions they ask and how interested they are in actually learning something as opposed to just showing up and burning the hours off completely defines whether these people really should even be in this industry and are going to be of any interest to us to hire them afterwards. I got to be honest, most people just burn the time and they don't really retain anything. Where can we send you? We could hire you hourly to come help us when we need a hand. Certainly there's work like that, but you're never going to get to the point where you're making the good money doing this until you learn all that stuff.
Yeah, you want someone that's tenacious actually asking why they're doing something, not just what to do.
Yeah, because what we need leads, not laborers. Yeah. We have plenty of laborers. Lots of people want to work, and they're all starting like that. There's plenty of people to show up and help push our gear around. Yeah, we need guys that can be in charge of the show. We're building the system out of racks and components and plugging everything together every single event. And you need to understand what's inside those racks, how the system's engineered, what every amplifier
does. And you're helping them learn that.
Oh yeah. We take them through that. And whether they retain it or not, that's the challenge I face with people every year is finding those people that really do understand that. And it takes a long time to do it.
Do you have any advice for people that want to be in business in general? I mean, we've talked about advice for wanting to work with you and those kinds of things here.
Sure.
But I mean, you started a business 30 years ago. You know, the music business is a business. The artist is in the center of our business, and everybody supports them. Everything from a record company to an artist manager to a tour manager, and agents and attorneys and so forth. We're all center of the universe as our artists. If they want to start a business right now, what is your general piece of advice that you want to say to somebody?
I would say don't be afraid to commit yourself to something that you don't entirely know how to do. Don't be afraid to commit to it. I do it all the time, and then I live in fear and anxiety for 6 months, and that pressure forces you to go do your homework and figure it out and watch a bunch of podcasts and master classes and read some manuals online, buy some equipment that you didn't have, figure out where to rent it. You have to put the pieces together.
So the apprenticeship starts to matter.
Yeah. Yeah,
and we were talking about making mistakes and those kinds of things. I would say that the definition of mastery is failing so many times you learn how not to, honestly.
Yeah, I tell that to coworkers that are getting frustrated, especially people that have worked in management with me here, are fulfilling one of those roles, and they're frustrated. I tell them, hey man, the thing about running a business is you have the rest of your life to figure it out.
Yeah.
And you can keep on rewriting that book of how you're doing it. Hiring the right people was a challenge. How do you do it? We failed at it over and over again. Had to keep on reaching out to somebody else. And you learn that being in business for yourself as opposed to just being an employee at a location it's only a matter of time before you figure out the formula.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hey, Bob. Thank you for doing this with me. I appreciate you very much. He's taken his time out here over at North State AV, Audiovisual. In our area, this is the one guy you hire. There's plenty of other people that can do it, and there's plenty of other ways to learn, like you talked about with the church and talking about with other local venues and those kinds of things. Then you ask for apprenticeships, kinds of things. How can I do something to help? It's not what can I do to take advantage of. It's always about what can I do to help. And that's how we learn. So I thank you very much for taking the time. It's Music Talk from the North State. I'm Dr. Paul Young, coming from the Northern California area, and I hope to see you on the next one. Thank you very much.
It was fun, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.